Hello YouTube, the Kingpin of Cinema.
I'm the QB999.
And we're going to bring you our latest movie review.
The first movie coming right out of summer. School's getting back into gear. People are unhappy. So, you know what we do when we're unhappy? Well, first off, we masturbate a little bit. Play a little Magic the Gathering, and then we go see a movie.
Yeah, we go check out a movie, and it's Friday night, and going out on the town, seeing what there is to see, and we're actually pretty well, pleasantly surprised in how much we like this one.
Alright, there's the lead up. So the movie we're going to review is...
Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Which when I first heard the title, I thought it was going to be like a movie based off that old Nickelodeon series.
Nickelodeon's Snick show that we all grew up with and loved.
But actually, this is a Guillermo Del Toro movie.
Produced and co-written by... He did not direct this. Though, from the style of the film and what it has to deal with, you would think that it was directed by him. Because it is very similar to the other movies that he's done.
Now, first off, I was kind of taken off a little bit, or not taken off, but kind of surprised, because by the previews, I thought this was going to be kind of like a ghost movie, when really it's more of a monster movie.
Yes, and... which is a major spoiler, but we're always very spoiled.
Well, you know what? If you're watching a review movie, chances are...
you're going to get spoiled anyways. So, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I think this movie is pretty darn amazing, and easily the best horror film I've seen all year.
That's a little more sparkling than what I would say, but I did enjoy it.
I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and I thought it's very effective. Really heavy on the atmosphere, had some great tension to it, and had some really good scares to it as well.
It also had some throwbacks to some other movies too, which actually, the most noticeable one is Coraline, actually. Yeah,
you got a very heavy Coraline... Kilby got a very heavy Coraline vibe from this. I kind of got more of a Pan's Labyrinth vibe.
Because, you know, it's a girl that just moved into a new house because of her parents' jobs. She's unhappy, goes exploring, and basically finds this
like, the back of the mansion is like this field, and and it feels very fantasy-esque, and it's kind of like a scene that you might see from Coraline. Yeah.
Even in Coraline, you know, you have the part where she was walking through the muddy mountains areas, and she finds the well that's surrounded by the mushrooms. You actually have that scene kind of in this movie, too, where she's running through the back forest of the house, and you actually do see, like, a ring of mushrooms somewhere, which you assume is part of a well. Although they never really explore that part. You just see the ring of mushrooms, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, but it's... really, everything looked really good. All the set pieces are really nicely done. And it's really your classic haunted house style horror film. Though it's not haunted, say, by ghosts, but
by these creatures.
By creatures. Now, by the fairy folk.
Now, like we said, the atmosphere of it is great. Basically, the story is, like we said, kind of like Coraline. You have this girl, moves in with her father and his girlfriend. She's incredibly unhappy. Yeah, and this movie is from the perspective of the little girl, which Guillermo Del Toro seems to really
he really likes that, because he even explains in interviews, like, his inspiration for a lot of the monsters that he creates is from when he was a child and the things he would imagine in the dark in his bedroom. So it makes sense that you would do it from the perspective of a child.
There's also just that feeling of vulnerability as a kid.
Yeah, and, you know, nobody believes a child, so... It is very refreshing to see a movie with, you know, a child and not the strong protagonist woman. You get I think you get a bit more of an effective horror film through a point of view of a child.
So they move into the house, she starts hearing voices coming from, like, this vent that they found in a hidden basement. And then, of course, like, it's voices that know her name, and it's telling them, hey, let us out, and we'll play with you. So, being a child, she just believes them, goes along with it, opens it up, and then that's kind of when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, and
She starts to realize these things don't really want to be friendly.
These little bastards are vicious too.
You do have
they jack things up.
You do have the stereotypical old man who knows everything that's going on,
but don't tell no one because they think you're crazy. So I mean, this film isn't groundbreaking in any sense of the word. I mean, this is very formulaic. It has been done 100 times before. But what makes it good, I mean, especially for me, and probably for you, is that it's refreshing because it hasn't been done in a while.
Yeah.
And what it does well.
And it's actually a good horror movie, too.
Yeah,
that by itself is refreshing.
It does what it does well. And that's all. It's not reinventing the wheel. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah.
It's improving it.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, some people have been complaining about stuff. Here, we actually have some reviews we want to read
Rotten
off.
Tomatoes, I'm going to go ahead and say that a lot of people that are reviewing this are being way too harsh on this movie.
Alright. First we have, this artless film even approaches child abuse in the way it crassly reconfigures the protagonist from the besieged adult woman of the original into a neglected and terrified tot.
Now,
I don't know how it's supposed to be child abuse, really.
Yeah.
It's these creatures trying to get at her teeth.
Yeah. So, and if we were having this debate, we can't decide if this is a remake or not.
Well, that, you would think so.
From that statement, you think it's a remake. I have no idea.
Well,
I assume there's 100 other movies called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, and this is just using the name, and it's completely original.
Another one you have is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark quickly loses steam when the creatures are fully visible and make frequent appearances.
What did you want? The creatures look amazing. Anytime did my brain ever started to say, oh, these guys are fake CG little monsters. They looked really good.
They did a good job with them. And the problem is, there are people, I will say this, people that prefer not to see the monsters, because then your imagination kind of gets the better of you, I guess. But in this movie, I think they couldn't really do this unless they showed the creatures.
Yeah.
Because part of the horror is constantly seeing them scurrying around all over the place.
And I will say is, they don't right off the bat show you what the creatures look like. There is build up to it.
Yeah.
But, I do agree that, yeah, it is scarier if you don't ever see it or know why. And this film does build up to the reveal. But what did you want from the monsters? They looked fine.
They're supposed to be just like little tiny gremlin. They're supposed to be fairies. These things are supposed to be the tooth fairies.
Yeah.
So they're not supposed to be huge demons with horns. They're just like little gremlin creatures that, even though they're small and are kind of fragile looking,
yeah,
it's like they still manage to be intimidating. The old guy that's supposed to know everything, he just gets
jacked up.
He gets swarmed by these things. They're just stabbing and cutting him.
These little bastards are strong. They jack people up.
Another review was heavy on atmosphere but light on scares.
Have you never seen a horror movie?
Scares come from the atmosphere.
If you watch any classic horror movie before the 80s, they're always heavy on the atmosphere. I think the problem we have nowadays is people just want to be shocked.
Yeah.
Or they just want to see nothing but gore. They don't want slow build-up. They don't want atmosphere.
If you want that, go see a Saw film.
Yeah.
Here's another one. The fairy tale aspect is not well crafted enough to make for an engaging fantasy, and the suspense is not scary enough to be truly thrilling.
Okay.
There's plenty of suspense, so you don't know what the hell's going on. The fairy tale aspect, I thought was really well built.
I thought it was very effective.
And you have, at first you know nothing, and then it gets towards the end of the movie where you start gaining a little bit of this information. It's not even the true story. It's the story kind of thought up by the previous guy who gets killed at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's not really telling the true story, it's just what he's heard.
Yeah.
From previous people.
So, to me, and this has a 58% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which we're reading these comments from. I just think people are just being way too harsh for this film.
I do think people are kind of expecting more gore, more shock scares than what this movie gives, but that's kind of not what this movie is. Which also,
it's very classic horror.
And what we were discussing too is we're not sure if this is rated R or not, but if it is, we're wondering why it is.
Yeah, because there's no bathtubs of blood, there's no swearing, there's no nudity. So I am just trying to wrap my brain around the fact of how this movie is rated R. I just don't know.
There's a few like little grotesque scenes, but nothing
like overtly grotesque. I mean, because there is a moment where the movie suggests something but doesn't show.
It's at the very beginning. You have a guy who's trying to get teeth for the tooth fairies for them to give him back his son. So he like trips his maid over. He just sits on top of her, takes a chisel to her mouth, and just whack.
But you don't see like the teeth caving in or anything like that. Or him like pulling him out. You know, like, say, Old Boy.
Yeah.
That has that moment where the guy has the hammer, and you see him actually physically pull the teeth out. It's nothing like that. I mean, you just see the whack, and then that's it.
And the only other really grotesque scene is when the old guy, is getting all cut up and stabbed, and you just see him walk up the stairs. He has a pair of scissors sticking out of his back, just reaches back and just pulls it out.
But again, I could point to probably a dozen other films that are far more violent than that are PG-13.
So you know what?
So I just don't know. I don't know why this is rated R.
So overall, if you're looking for a Saw film with all the gore, all the pointless gore, and all the blood spilling, and all the 20 pints of blood coming from one person out of a paper cut, go see a Saw movie. If you actually want a good movie with atmosphere, suspense, build-up,
and good payoff as well.
And, good acting, too.
Yeah, the acting is fine.
You like the little girl. She does a really good job of it.
Mm-hmm.
The girlfriend, who's actually supposed to be, like, the supportive one to the little girl, actually does a very good job. The dad, who's supposed to be the jerk and who you hate, he pulls it off.
Because he never believes the main character until the end. He's fine, too. Everybody did it... really brought something to the table and did a really good job. Now, I hate it when these people were saying, oh, it should have been a strong female protagonist. Like, no. That is done so to death that the fact that it's a little girl has made it a little refreshing.
Also, the way this movie began also kind of reminded me of George A. Romero's Drag Me to Hell, too.
It wasn't George A. Romero, it was...
Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi, sorry.
But yeah, the beginning of it really reminded me of that movie, too.
It really set the tone of the film.
You see kind of what's going on, what to expect, and then, like, the beginning intro is kind of like all these, like, handwritten stories about it.
And it does show the... it foreshadows the ending of the film as well.
Yes.
So the beginning of the film does a beginning intro to a film perfectly by setting the tone and also foreshadowing how it's going to conclude.
So overall, this movie, just a really good horror, really good atmosphere, good acting, actually...
It's refreshing. It's insanely good. I say check it out. If you love old school horror, you will love this film.
And even if you also like kind of like old fantasy storytelling with like a darker twist.
With a very dark tone to it. You will also like this film. If you're just generally curious, go see it. Now, if you're just a gore hound, you're going to hate it. And I think a lot of these people that are reviewing it are gore hounds, or people that are into shock value, just don't like it. So.
Then in that case, just go see Fright Night.
I'll take this film over Fright Night any day of the week.
Anyway, I think that's about all we can say about this. Go see it.
Check it out.
Great horror movie.
I guarantee you would like it.
Probably our best horror movie this whole year so far. But we still have October coming up.
We still have The Moon and... No, Apollo 18.
Apollo 18.
And...
Paranormal 3.
Yep.
So we'll see how those stack up against this. Anyway, so QB999.
The Kingpin of Cinema.
And as always, if you don't like it,